If you know exactly what to do for your fitness, you understand progressive overload, you know your macros, you've dialed in your sleep, but you still can't maintain consistency for more than a few months, and when life throws you a curveball, whether that's travel, work stress, or just the mundane chaos of daily existence, your entire system collapses, then this episode is for you. Because today I am talking with Alan Lazaros, CEO and co-host of Next Level University, about something that most fitness content tends to ignore: the meta architecture underneath your execution. What do I mean? Not another habit framework, not more motivation, but the engineering principles that determine whether your fitness survives contact with reality. You'll learn why the gap between knowing and sustaining exists, how to build buffer into your system so life's demands don't derail everything, and the specific meta skills that separate people who stay consistent for decades from those who restart every New Year's. Welcome to Wits and Weights, the show that helps you build a strong, healthy physique using evidence, engineering, and efficiency. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and today we're going to look at why most people fail at fitness consistency despite having all the right information. My guest is Alan Lazaros. He is the CEO and co-host of Next Level University, a top 100 daily podcast with over 2,200 episodes now, reaching 175 countries. And what I genuinely respect about this man is he also thinks like an engineer, like I do. He applies that mindset to human behavior. And if you look at his history, at 26, he had a near fatal car crash. It forced him to rebuild his approach to performance, to identity, to sustainable achievement. We love that word here, sustainable, the long-term results. And he's since built a multi-six-figure business helping high performers create what he calls meta systems, or meta systems, however you want to pronounce it. And that is the architecture underneath the habits, the motivation, the willpower that determine long-term consistency. So today, you are going to discover why such wide gaps often exist between knowing, doing, and sustaining your results, the specific components of a consistency architecture that hopefully can survive the messiness of real life, and the meta skills that give you the highest leverage for long-term, lifelong results. Alan, thank you, man, for coming on the show and doing this with me.
Philip, gratitude first. Thank you for having me. I respect you and the work that you do in the world deeply, and you very much take your platform very, very seriously, which I appreciate.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I think professionalism is really important. And hopefully we all feed off of each other as we surround ourselves with the best and try to be the best. And today I kind of want to talk about that for the user. Here I am thinking like an engineer. You and I talk about users. For the listener, and having this sort of system of meta skills. I think you and your partner, Kevin, who's part of the podcast production team behind me as well, just want to give him a shout out, Kevin Palmieri, on Next Level University, you guys talk about meta skills and having a meta system. And my engineering brain immediately thinks the higher order skills that drive consistency across a domain. Maybe that's fitness, like we care about here. Maybe that's business, relationships. And I think of systems as opposed to specific methods, just like I think of principles as opposed to methods. What do you mean when you talk about meta skills? And then we're going to go from there.
Okay, so there's a challenge skills sweet spot that, have you ever read the book, The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Stephen Kotler is one of the top researchers of flow and getting in the zone, which obviously is critical for fitness. And he talks about the challenge skills sweet spot, how you can't get in the zone until you're in the challenge skills sweet spot, which basically means it needs to be outside your comfort zone and challenging and exciting enough to be outside your skills, but also within your comfort zone enough to where you're not, basically stretch yourself as much as possible without snapping. I think of skills as, if skills are in the center, there are sub-skills underneath. So for example, effective communication is a skill. A sub-skill underneath that would be storytelling. Mm-hmm. A meta skill would be thinking about how you're telling a story and the understanding the hero's journey architecture of a story. So meta skills are very cognitive. Skills are something that you do in practice, deep practice. I know you've talked about that on your show. And then sub skills are the little nuance things that you practice underneath a skill. So I think of it from bottom to top, it would be sub skills, skills, meta skills. And one of the things that I've found is when you see someone's career and their career is what you try to do, or what I try to do, there's a book called Decoding Greatness. What I try to do is reverse engineer sort of their journey. I think of it like a graph. Okay, where did they start? Where are they now? And where are they headed? And the sort of overnight success thing of when you see a physique, it didn't fall out of the sky. There are certain supplements they're taking, they're sleeping a certain way, they're hydrating a certain way. Everything that they're doing behind the scenes, you almost have to deduce. And there's meta skills, skills, and sub skills that they have that you might not have yet. Some of them came naturally, and in some cases, they don't even know that they have them. And in some cases, they had to develop them consciously over time. So to me, that's a very simple way to explain something that's extremely complicated is what are the sub skills, skills, and meta skills that you need to achieve a specific outcome. In terms of physique is what we're talking about now, but that works for business, that works for success, that works for goals, that works for relationships, all that.
Yeah, and I appreciate frameworks and hierarchies like that. I think it's also helpful because sometimes I think people get stuck if they're focused on building a skill and something is not working. It could be that the meta skill needs more support. Or I suppose it could be that they're not breaking it down to the proper level of process-related goals that get them to the skill. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the challenge skills sweet spot, and I think of, again, a spectrum from, I think of a spectrum when you talk about flow, where like, is playing video games on a couch flow because you're, absorbed in it and time is flying by, but yet it's not challenging or develop skills. Now, somebody could argue against that. Yep. And conversely, is something that is so hard that you cannot even improve because it's so beyond your level. The opposite end of that, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what I think about. The first place I learned about flow, and I think the book you mentioned was Positive Psychology. The idea being that flow is one of those elements of the good life of having, meaning and purpose.
Yes.
Right. That you can find flow in something. So now people are listening like, okay, where are these guys going with this?
Yeah.
I want to kind of tie that to fitness. You say you reverse engineer somebody's journey. Take something very simple. Take strength training, training consistency, which is a big holdup for a lot of folks. Where would someone think about the mental framework with the skills, the meta skills, and the sub skills for that?
It's interesting because when it comes to fitness, a lot of this I haven't teased out. A lot of this is in my subconscious and unconscious, and I'm glad we're talking about it.
Let's do it.
The best way. So you talked about video games, and video games, you do develop skills, hand-eye coordination. There's something called a RTS, a real-time strategy game, where you have to think in time and all that kind of stuff. So I
tell my wife that all the time, by the way.
Okay, nice.
Yes, it does develop skills.
So here's the thing, right? So a great film like Avatar, for example, gets you into flow. Time slips away, you're fully immersed, and all of a sudden you're immersed into a new world. You get all the neurochemistry, which is what flow, basically, people who have the most flow in their life, they've done studies, they are the most fulfilled and the most meaning and the most purpose. You already mentioned that. The problem is, after you watch a great show or a great film, you're the same. Mm-hmm. The hero that you watched in the film, you were simulating the emotions and the flow of being immersed in that world. But when you get off the couch having watched Avatar, you're not any stronger. Maybe you're a little smarter because you can learn from film, but you didn't actually develop any tangible skills that you can now go use. And so to go back to your original point though, when it comes to fitness, I think that fitness, whatever your modality, you can talk CrossFit, you can talk bodybuilding, you can talk strength training, which is what we're going to get to. But any modality of fitness that you pick, it should be, in my opinion, optimized around something that you, even if it's painful, you are always glad you did it. I don't want to say you love to do it because a lot of times that trips people up. I always say you don't know you love something because you always want to do it. You know you love something because you're always glad you did.
Yes. That makes total sense for fitness.
Right. I don't always want to weight train, but I'm always glad I did.
Yep.
And so pick something that creates a lot of flow, because that flow has shown 2 or 3 hours after that, the runner's high, the zone, after a great workout, you're going to feel accomplished. You're also going to be stronger and or better cardiovascular health. And so back to the skills piece. Strength training, the meta skills for strength training is consistency. Another meta skill for strength training is tracking. So you know how much you bench press, so do I. You know how much you squat, so do I. You know how much, when you go into the gym, my goal in every workout is, how do I get a little bit better this time than last time? Sometimes I accomplish it, sometimes I don't. I think that you'll probably geek out with me a little bit on this. And I don't know if you've heard me say this on the podcast, but I researched this, and this is something that I think your listeners will be fascinated by. So you've heard of the aggregation of marginal gains, James Clear, Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So for those of you out there who haven't read Atomic Habits yet, I highly recommend that you do. It's a very, very great book. But ultimately, I created my own sort of flavor of this, which is I put $1 in a financial calculator, and I grew it by 0.1% every day for 50 years. Now, when you do this, it becomes almost $84 million. Now, the kicker, and this is the meta skill of consistency, this is the reason why to do it. I do this with all my clients. I pull up the financial calculator, I put $1 in, I put 50 years, which is 18,000 something days. I do 365 times 50. And then it shows $84 million, almost 83. I rounded up. And I said, what happens if I take weekends off? So there's 52 weeks a year. If you take weekends off, it comes to $439,000. So let's say that you don't take weekends off and you get a little better each day, every day, 7 days a week, and I only do it 5 days a week. You have 191 times the outcome that I do. And that's an example of a meta skill, like thinking about your thinking and thinking about, because everyone knows you should work out, but if you don't have enough reasons why, if you don't understand the mathematics is a meta skill, cognitive skill underneath fitness. That's why we're talking about the engineering thing. And so I know some people who have the sub skills and the skills, but not the meta skills, so they don't leverage the compound effect. And then I know some people who know the math, but don't execute. And so that's kind of my long-winded answer to your question. But if you want to go through the meta skills and sub skills of fitness and how to succeed in fitness, I do think that would probably be of value.
Yeah. Before we do that, I want to poke on this consistency piece, because first I want to define what we mean. I think it's nebulous for a lot of folks what consistency even means. I mean, you gave an example I can take away from the financial example where 7 days versus 5 days. Some might argue 5 days is super consistent for something, right? Like you're doing it X% of the time, all the time, forever, and therefore you're consistent, even though the output's different. So is one person more consistent, right? That's the first question. And then I want to play devil's advocate and ask, why is consistency a meta skill versus an outcome of other skills or meta skills?
I think I consider consistency a meta skill because if you don't have the cognitive understanding of why it matters, you kind of just won't do it. Okay. And so here's some examples. So if you understand the science of habits, if you understand the science of the compound effect and the aggregation of marginal gains, and you understand the science of how to actually sustain something long term in terms of longevity, but also not burn out. Learning how to not burn out is another. It's really easy to say you should exercise every day for the rest of your life. The truth is, I actually believe that. It doesn't mean you should run a marathon every day. I've exercised with my beautiful girlfriend March 1st of 2022. I came to her and I said, sweetheart, I want to beat my old best. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the most I've ever worked out consistently, exercised consistently, is 3.5 months. I was during my master's program. I had nothing going on. To me, I went from engineering to an MBA, which compared to engineering, getting your master's in business is a joke.
I've been there.
Yeah, everything compared to engineering is a joke. Honestly, one of the hardest things I've ever done was engineering. But that said, I basically exercised every day for 3.5 months. And March 1st of 2022 now, which is wild to think about, I said, I want to beat my old best. I'm going for 4 months. I need to go 120 days straight. And she's like, I'll do it with you. We did that. And then we surpassed the 120 days. And I said, we did it. Awesome. And then she said, let's go for a year. And then I'll never forget this. We're pulling into the garage. We hit 365 days because I'm big on tracking. I have Google Sheets and I track all my metrics. And I said, we did it. She said, did what? And I said, we did a year. And she turned to me, no hesitation. She said, let's do this for the rest of our life. And I had a mini panic attack because I was like, I can't make this promise to you or to myself unless I actually do it. This is a side tangent, but if you break the promises you make to yourself, you're basically going to have no self-esteem and no self-respect. and you're not going to build belief and self-worth. And so for me, I do not break promises to myself. Okay. Sometimes I do. I try really hard not to. I try really hard not to, because it's just a dollar in the bank account of your self-worth. Dollar in the bank account. Say you go to the gym, keep the promise. That's just how you invest in yourself. So I said, I can't do this unless you're serious. Like, for the rest of our life, that's a big commitment. Now, I want to make this very clear. Jogging counts, swimming counts, walking my dog counts. The minimum is a half an hour, 30 minutes a day, every day. Steady state cardio, HIIT training, weight training, it all counts. And we've been doing that now since March 1st of 2022, which I did yesterday. I crunched my numbers, is 3.6 years ago. Now, we've bumped it from 30 to 35, 35 to 40, went back to 30, then we got it to 45, then we got it to an hour. So now we're doing an hour. That is kind of crazy. It's been very hard to sustain, honestly. That said, I believe in consistency very, very deeply. But what I've come to realize, and I have 20 clients, so I'm not just talking. I did fitness coaching for a long time. I said, anyone can teach you how to lose weight. Almost no one can get you to actually do it. Getting you to actually do it means you have to understand yourself, self-awareness. You have to understand the human condition, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and you have to understand how to poke your own buttons. I am infinitely more likely to exercise consistently, and this is the humble pie piece. There's no way I would have exercised every day for 3.6 years without Emilia. No way. Mm-hmm. The accountability that you have from not wanting to let her down, and then once you get a streak, the psychology underneath that. I mean, what are the chances I'm not going to exercise tonight? Oh, I went for 3.6 years and then I canned it. It gets, once you have a streak going, you hang on so deeply to that streak, and it holds you accountable. A lot of people think I'm out of my mind. I understand that. You don't have to do what I'm doing. But what I will say is that I consider consistency a meta skill because there's so much thinking, not to mention you also have to design and optimize your entire life around that.
Yeah.
Which is lifestyle design. So if you think you're just going to exercise every day for the rest of your life and then just kind of wing it, there's no way. We just traveled last week. We were on a road trip from Massachusetts to South Carolina and back in 1 week, and exercise was infinitely more difficult. I mean, we were walking around the Tesla chargers, right? And so the meta, I call it meta because you have to think about your thinking constantly. You have to be thinking about yourself and what motivates you, because you have to be able to poke your own buttons, basically. You have to be able to coach yourself in real time.
Yeah, I was thinking about a conversation I recently had with Adam Schaefer of Mind Pump before. I think his episode's coming out right before yours. Nice. So no pressure, follow him, right?
Shit.
And he was talking about how he, his current phase of life where his 6-year-old kid is one of the most important things right now, scaling his business. He's already built plenty of muscle. He's been shredded multiple times in his life. All he cares about is maintaining his fitness right now. And it doesn't take much to do that. Yeah. For him, his system of consistency is always there, and it might ebb and flow with like the priorities, and it might get applied to a different outcome, and he might require less effort, right? Because we know the compounding effect of habits often feeds into itself and does make these things almost, I'll say, inevitable. Even with your car trip, it's like, even if you went the whole trip and didn't do that every day, you'd get right back to it. And that's kind of like that rubber band kind of hardly been stretched is my thought for that. I don't know if that makes sense. But you did mention not burning out. And I think then sustainability and not burning out and having a system where it's the minimum effective dose is the minimum. And then not having such a high standard for yourself on a daily basis that's impossible to, keep. And it's like somewhere in there, right? Like, and I imagine it can shift. Like, does your minimum half hour or hour a day ever change during a specific phase, or is it always that?
It did change. So we started out with 30 minutes. And I'll tell you right now, if we had started out with an hour and a half or something, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's just no way. We run 3 businesses between the two of us. So the minimum viable product in business is we call it a minimum viable habit, which is MVH. So for us, it was 30 minutes a day because I knew we could sustain that to start. And you know what's really kind of wild about this? I used to do fitness competitions. I've got these sort of trophies behind me, blah, blah, blah. But Kevin and I let it go for a while. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say we let it go. We weren't out of shape, but we weren't competitor level freaks of nature like we once were. When I first met Kev, this dude was an animal. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I playfully joked with him. I said, Kevin, this is next level university, not dad bod university. Because him and I lost it after COVID. He didn't work out for like 3 or 4 months. And I went from basically in a gym that was bodybuilder gym. It's called Impact Fitness in Massachusetts. And this is like, I mean, you go there and you're going to get eaten. It's great. It's awesome. And I was overhead pressing 225. Like for bodybuilders, it was like I was on it. And then I was out of the gym for 3.5 months during COVID. I could not go to the gym. I'm working out in my closet doing chin-ups. I only have 35-pound dumbbells, so I can't. When you build a physique on certain equipment and then that equipment gets taken, I'm not one for excuses, but it's very hard you can't squat 250 pounds when you don't have the equipment. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't go to the gym. So the gym's opened. I cry on my way to the gym. Happy tears. And I blew my groin. I tried to get right back to where I was. I got injured. I was outside the challenge skill sweet spot, to your point. But back to the minimum viable habit. One of the things that's been really fascinating is I am just now, and I know this sounds crazy, 3.5 years into consistent daily exercise, I'm just now feeling the benefits of it. Like there have been a few videos I've posted on my Instagram recently where it's like, wow, I actually feel like an athlete again. Because one of the things people don't tell you when you compete in fitness is you peak early. I was 27, 28 years old in optimal conditioning. My whole world was fitness, no household, no 3 businesses. I was a fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, 43 photo shoots. Like my whole world was fitness back then. And then you grow these companies and you have a 19-person team and all of a sudden fitness takes a back seat. And so back to your original question though, you have to have a minimum that you hit no matter what. And then you can slowly ramp that up. We tried to go from 30 to 45. We had to go back to 30. And now we've been able to sustain the hour for probably the last 4 months, which has been really good. It's not been easy. So yesterday, I'll give an example. We went to the gym. We both woke up a little bit late. We had our first calls at 11 a.m. And we got to the gym and we were sitting there in the car going, there's no way. We're not going to make our first meeting. I said, we got to do 35. So we did 35 weights and then we did 25 walking in the evening. So we still got the hour in, but we broke it into 2. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to have a minimum that you always hit. Our new minimum is an hour. And I told Emilia, I said, listen, we are not going more than that. If I'm exercising every day for the rest of my life, I'm not doing more than an hour. And if you want to start out, and this is what people do, New Year's resolutions, they say, I want to do, 5 days a week, 3 hours. No, start small and ramp up. Start small, actually hit and ramp up. Not everybody can be Kobe Bryant level 4-a-days. And he didn't start there either. He was doing, 1-a-days, then it was 2-a-days, then it was 3-a-days, then it was 4-a-days from 13 years old all the way to, when he was 38 or whatever it was. So at the end of the day, you got to start small and build. And I would much rather, this is why humility is so important.
Yeah.
I think self-belief is, I know I can do this. I think humility is, I know I'm not going to do this unless I stay humble enough to make it feasible. And I think self-belief and humility rarely go hand in hand. Usually someone has a lot of humility and low self-belief and they're kind of self-deprecating, or they have a ton of self-belief that they're sort of delusional and they can never stay consistent because they are, overly optimistic.
Yeah, and these are the kind of concepts you guys talk about on your show all the time. That's why I encourage the listener to check it out. You specifically are a numbers guy, and that goes through my mind. Just real quick, Kevin said he didn't know another engineer. You need to correct that. I went to RPI. I know you went to WPI.
Nice.
Somehow he doesn't know this, so I need to educate him.
Yeah, you do. He does. He says, I don't even know any other engineers. I'm like, my God. How many engineers do you know? Just real quick. 50 of them at least, right?
Yeah, well, I know hundreds, right? Because I'm in the space. Yeah.
Same. When he said that blew my mind. I was like, wait, what? My whole world has been engineers,
It's funny. It's funny. Engineers are definitely a specific breed. My wife and I joke all the time about it because she was a teacher and comparing our two worlds when now she's a stay-at-home mom, but it was pretty funny.
Nice.
I love engineers though. But so, and the listener really understands when we get into this stuff that I am a big fan of tracking in numbers and everything, but there's a reason for it. I think it's very efficient, and math is like a beautiful universal language of abstraction to something that is atomic almost, right? It's like simple to represent something with math. You don't have to know calculus. You don't have to know differential equations, just very simple, numbers. And so when you say something like the 5 versus 7 day example, I think of some of the counterintuitive findings in nutrition science. Like there was a study that compared 5 to 7 days of weighing yourself, not 0 versus 5 or 7, but 5 versus 7, and found that 7 days led to better long-term outcomes.
Nice.
And you're like, well, that's interesting. That 2-day difference of consistency made a huge difference. So my question then for you is, you have this daily practice, this daily minimum. I think of fitness as different pillars that we kind of have to all put together, right? You've got training, I put movement in a separate bucket, but you could argue that nutrition, right? Sleep, stress, there's like these big buckets.
Love it.
But when we talk about the fitness side of it, the different modalities and burnout and stimulus versus fatigue, we pretty well understand that you can't push it too hard on, say, the lifting weights piece before you go into that unrecovered regime, which gets even worse when you're in a fat loss phase. You don't have the energy for it. So if you're running like a 3-day-a-week program, would you say to someone, the other 4 days have a substitute activity that's like equivalent? Is that how we do it for that, to kind of keep it linear?
Yeah, people don't like me for this, but I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to add value. Fitness is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And there should be something that you're doing every day for your physique. I do build the self, build the family, build the business every day. Every day. You move the needle every day. So I have a pyramid, and you're a systems guy, and I agree with you on the mathematics. I say without mathematics, take away this TV, take away Restream, take away this microphone, take away iPhone. Yeah, take away everything. Listen, math is the epicenter of all great creations. And if you don't know mathematics, you don't need, like you said, you don't need to know calculus. But you do, there is benefits to calculus, rate of change over time. Mm-hmm. If you don't like math, I would say you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. You don't have to be an engineer, but you have to learn some math. And one of the things, I wanted to be a math teacher when I was a kid. And now I joke, I say, now I teach math to business owners. And when I was a kid, I said, I wanted to be a math teacher so desperately. And I said, well, they don't make enough money, unfortunately. And now I teach math to business owners. It's fascinating. But back to the framework here. I agree with you on the buckets. So I have a pyramid of fitness that I created back in my fitness coaching days. Now, the cool thing about a pyramid in geometry is that in order for it to climb higher, it has to have a stronger foundation. And you mentioned, we talk about burnout. One of the things that I think, if I were to just come on here and just arrogantly say, hey, I haven't missed a day of exercise in 3.6 years, that doesn't do it justice, because the only reason I can do that is because of the other things you're not seeing me do. That's one component of the ladder, the pyramid. Training is 1/7 of the equation, in my opinion, from my perspective. So the bottom is sleep. I track my sleep every single day. I'm sure that you do. Aura is unbelievable. Do whatever you got to do. Track your sleep, even if you do it manually. So sleep is the foundation. When I get bad sleep, I feel like the sky is falling. Mm-hmm. So I got an 83 sleep score last night. So I'm in a good place. I feel good. When I don't get good sleep, I was on the road last week. It was very hard to perform. It was very hard to come here and add value. It was very hard to get all my work done and to have the willpower necessary to do what I got to do. So sleep is the bottom of the pyramid. And the better you get sleep, the better all the rest go. And if you're arrogant enough to think you're going to exercise every day and get crappy sleep, you need some humble pie. So sleep is the bottom. So I'll give them all and then I'll go through them. So sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breath work, and supplementation. Those are my 7. And supplementation is the top of it, meaning the importance of it is the least. The fitness industry, what do they sell? Supplements. So obviously everyone is going to overemphasize the importance of supplements. Until you're sleeping well, hydrating, until you're doing the other pillars, supplementation is exactly that. It's supposed to be a supplement, but most people overly focus on that. Hey, what's your stack? And are you taking creatine? All this stuff. Mm-hmm. To me, it's about sleep first, hydration second. I've got my Vita Coca water right here. Boom. Not a plug. I do not get paid by Vita Coca. I just love them. Okay, sleep, hydration, nutrition, which is calories, micros, macros. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training. Training is any form of movement. You mentioned movement. I call it training, which I think is intentional movement. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility. That's the one I struggle with most. I cannot be consistent. limiting belief. I struggle to be consistent with mobility. That's been the hardest for me. Everyone I've ever coached in fitness or otherwise struggles with one of these 7 really bad.
Let me guess,
Some people,
you feel like it's a waste of time, or not a big fan of it, or whatever. Or it doesn't work, not helping, or whatever. Not a fan.
No, it definitely helps. I'm not deluding myself. It helps.
There's a reason somebody
hate it.
tends to
hate
be
it.
less.
You know what it is? I won't do it unless I'm learning.
Okay.
I need to do it while learning. But foam rolling, stretching, bands, that whole 9. So sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breath work. This is one that I didn't have until way later. And I don't know how familiar you are with breath work.
I mean, box breathing and all the different techniques. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So breathing properly. And then supplementation is last. So I do creatine. I do magnesium and melatonin before bed. I do a multivitamin. That's pretty much it.
Fish oil,
my
maybe.
Supplementation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, but to me, those are the 7 that matter. And in order to do all 7 consistently, it is a full-time job. Don't get it twisted. Most people are not healthy. And I wasn't either in the past. So I get it. You know, back in my engineering days in corporate, I was drinking too much and too often, and I was 160 pounds, skinny fat, not healthy. And I'll never go back. But if you sit there and say, I want to be healthy, I want to be fit, I want to build my physique, you basically have to think of it like a full-time job. You know, every single day you should be moving the needle on something for sure.
Unfortunately, sleep should slot in for a third of that day, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
and the rest of the waking hours have the rest.
At least a third.
But it's an interesting list. I've heard you talk about it before, and we don't have to like argue over what should be in the list because everybody might have their own little different things. What I find interesting, and you can help me understand this, is let's put this in the context of skills, of sub-skills, skills, and meta skills. When I think nutrition, to me, that's like a massive bucket, a massive pillar that encompasses so many things.
Huge.
I mean, it's everything you eat, right? But it's all the things tied to that, corollary to that. When I think of breath work, to me, that's a very specific application of, let's say, mindfulness or relaxation or stress management. And I would almost say like, oh, which of these do not belong, right? Like on the IQ test where you look at how they all compare. And I'd say, well, I might actually want stress management as a higher level than breath work, kind of like sleep. You don't talk about the sleep hacks and such. Where does your mind go with that? And then we can talk about the meta skills and skills.
Well, the breath work, I think, is also while you're training. How you're breathing while you're training. The certain way you breathe while you run. The certain way you breathe while you do strength training. But I do like the stress management piece. And the other piece of this too, and I've had a lot of really smart people in my life. So they've always came with different, it's like minerals. No. I like yours, stress. Also hormones. Mm-hmm. So one person came to me, Amy. I don't know if you know Amy Lenius. She's on our team. But she said, Alan, you forgot hormones. And I said, well, yes and no. And again, there's a lot of nuances to this. But if you do sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, and supplementation well, obviously hormones are a byproduct. So, and then obviously, a lot of athletes unfortunately do steroids. And we're not going to have that conversation, I don't think. I'm a natural athlete. I've never personally done steroids. I never intend on it. I used to compete with people who did, which was very unfair, which is one of the reasons I lost 2 of my 3 shows. But it's like, well, there's a drug test. Yeah, well, I didn't say they were running a cycle right now, but they definitely were 3 months ago. That I promise you. But anyways, so at the end of the day, I like the stress management. I think that if I were to replace breath work, I would probably go with that.
Cool.
Because I think that's very important, because as an athlete, you kind of have to not let anxiety take you, because you know as well as I do, like when anxiety spikes and cortisol spikes, your test levels plummet. So you got to be very mindful of how stressed out you get. One of the problems with meta skills being an engineer, engineers are thinking all the time. Always 24/7, 365, right? It's always going. So
it's true.
It's very hard there aren't a lot of like really in shape engineers. I'm not trying to be mean. There just aren't. And one of the reasons why is because we think about the past and the future so often. And high IQ is very rarely correlated with low stress levels.
Yeah, it's true. Which I guess this whole discussion about this pyramid, honestly, could be its own podcast when we talk about these different levels, right? Because now you got me thinking about mindfulness in general permeating all of this, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system being so crucial to your health. And then you mentioned hormones, and my mind goes to blood work and how your biomarkers are a reflection of your hydration and nutrition, and how supplementation is potentially a subset of nutrition, right? So anyway, we don't want to go. This is the thinking, right?
This is the RPI versus WPI. Okay. By the way, I'm totally curious. And you don't mind if I call you Phil? Is it Philip or Phil?
It's Philip. It's Philip.
Okay, Philip. Sorry about that if I called
it's
you
all
Phil
good.
earlier.
It's all
I'm
good.
sure I'm not the only one who made that mistake, right?
Yeah.
Did you end up applying to, because I applied to RPI, WPI, and MIT. I didn't apply to MIT. I wish that I did. Did you end up applying to WPI?
No, I didn't. I was from Florida, so I wasn't actually even familiar with a lot of the schools up here. So it was like RPI, Cornell, MIT.
Where are you hailing now? Sorry, I don't want to.
I'm in Connecticut right now.
Okay,
yeah,
cool, man.
So I stayed up here. I moved from Florida and I stayed in New England. So we're near each other.
I'm a huge fan of New England, man. I just drove from Mass to South Carolina, as I mentioned, and I missed home. New England's great. New England's great. Yeah, 3 months out of the year suck, but the rest are awesome.
Yeah, the contrast is nice. Like there's a concept in Finland. I think it's Finland. There's a Denmark called hygge, Hygge. Familiar with this concept?
Mm-mm.
I think that'd be a cool episode for you guys to talk about. Actually, hygge is the idea of embracing the weather, no matter what it is, with positivity and like embracing it to its fullest. So when it's really cold, that means blankets and fire and dressing up really warmly and saying like, no excuses. I mean, it's kind of a no excuses mentality, but not from a die hard, mentality. But this is the world. This is the planet Earth. So circling some of this in, because we mentioned the engineers being out of shape. I see it every day. It's the thinking. It's also the lifestyle. It's also, there's a lot of sedentary professions as well that correlate with poor health.
I also think some of it's cultural.
Yeah.
Because if you get your value from being smart, which most engineers do, you don't need to be, jacked or whatever it is. It always bothered me how people are so one-dimensional. And again, I don't mean people in general. Not everyone is. But I hated how you had to be smart or athletic.
Yes.
Or you had to be like good-looking or intelligent. You can't be both. And for me, I was going to write a book called The Best of Both Worlds. And I didn't want to just be one-dimensional. I wanted to be healthy, wealthy, and in love. I didn't want to just be, because I have a bunch of millionaire friends, as you do from college, that it's like, what are you doing, brother? Like, why don't you? You obviously have the time and money, so like, what's the disconnect here, right? And it frustrates me because I don't want to see them suffer, and their potential is so much greater than that. These people are brilliant. Yeah. And why aren't you applying your brilliance to your health?
Yeah. I think it applies to multiple skills that are outside what your domain is. And what I mean by that is I've seen engineers who get in shape, myself among them, right? Where there is an advantage to that for sure. You would think there's not, but there is, because people start treating you differently. You get a little bit more respect. You have more energy. You show up more in a different way. Now, maybe if you take it too far and get too jacked, maybe people will be like, you're a meathead now.
Yeah, I took it too
and
far.
that could divvy it down. and you see plenty of CEOs and vice presidents who are overweight, and it doesn't obviously hold them back necessarily until they have that heart attack or, their work life is cut short. But I think there's even other domains like public speaking. Engineers don't dive into that because they feel like it's not a skill that they need until they need it, and there's skills like music, creativity, creative endeavors, whether it's music or something else. I played jazz in arts high school, which again is weird being an engineer, but there's a lot of overlap between music and math and engineering. And it just opens up the creative mind. So sorry, you get me thinking about all of these things.
I love it, man. And one of the reasons I think engineers don't typically become public speakers is because math modalities of thinking have a really hard time communicating effectively. This will be a very quick side tangent, but I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about the 4 modalities of thinking.
Probably. I've heard hundreds of your episodes. So.
Okay, I appreciate you. You've probably heard it, but basically the rarest one is math, statistics, probabilities, equations, formulas. The most common one is words, conversations, and concepts. Then there's vision, pictures, and images. And then there's the second rarest, which is energy, intuition, and vibe. And women tend to be better at that one. So we all have all 4, but we have a really good one and a really bad one. My really good one is mathematics. My really bad one was energy. I just wasn't reading the vibe. I didn't, I grew up in a very low vibe environment and I didn't understand. So Emilia, fortunately, has helped me with that. And I've helped her on the math side. But engineers struggle to communicate. I mean, even in this episode, I know I seem like maybe a strong communicator, but I want to be honest with all of you. It is very hard for me to get what my engineering brain thinks to be said. It's insane. Like,
yes, I can relate, man.
I think in the X, Y, and Z axis. Like everything's a graph for me. So it's very hard to articulate it. And then here's the biggest problem. And this has been really hard for me in business because I'm a business coach. For people who don't think in mathematics, it's very hard. I have this remarkable, so I pull this up and I can draw it out. It's been unbelievable, the unlocks, because these engineering concepts are unbelievably valuable in business. And if you don't understand numbers and exponential growth, like think about it just for a second. Imagine, Philip, if you didn't know what exponential growth actually meant. Mm-hmm. You couldn't possibly understand the economy. Everything's exponential. Nothing grows linearly. So it's either an exponential decay or exponential increase. And I've come to realize through coaching so many people that we are so missing that. We're missing the mathematic understanding of a penny that doubles every day for 31 days. Halfway in, it's $5 and it ends up being $10.3 million. So nobody, even the 84 million, $1 becomes 84 million in 50 years. In 10 years, it's only $38 or whatever. So I don't think anyone taught us this stuff, and it bothers me so much because us engineers have it. We know it. We understand it. Yeah. But we aren't able to communicate it, and including myself. I mean, it's brutal.
Shout out to Philip Pape. I know Philip for a long time, and I know how passionate he is about healthy eating and body strength, and that's why I chose him to be my coach. I was no stranger to dieting and body training, but I always struggled to do it sustainably. Philip helped me prioritize my goals with evidence-based recommendations while not overstressing my body and not feeling like I'm starving. In 6 months, I lost 45 pounds without drastically changing the foods I enjoy, but now I have a more balanced diet. I weight train consistently, but most importantly, I do it sustainably. If a scientifically sound, healthy diet and a lean, strong body is what you're looking for, Philip Pape is your guy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's an ongoing skill of trying to tell that story. It's effectively a story we're trying to tell, is convert what's in our brain into something that you understand over there, in your brain. It's like telepathy spoken out loud, and now you're trying to make it work. So what is your concept? Are you familiar with the dichotomy of intuitive eating versus like tracking your macros?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure you are, right? Those kinds of concepts always pop in my head because, first of all, they're camps that don't necessarily need to exist here because there's so much overlap. But secondly, I can't ever grasp why somebody would want to flail around and try to figure things out, quote unquote, intuitively without having developed some skill. And I think intuition is just a highly tuned sense of skill that now you don't need the training wheels anymore or something to that effect. Does that resonate with you?
Well said. Yeah. People say, well, just trust your gut. Well, what if your gut is conditioned horribly wrong?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I'll give you an example. I had a stepfather and he and I didn't get along well. And I was interviewing someone, or I was being interviewed by someone. His name's Tim Melanson. He has a podcast called The Work at Home Rockstar. He was a client of mine. I coached him for a while and I had to work through this. He looks just like my stepdad. He's got the beard and everything. And I remember being like, I'm so triggered by this guy. Tim is the nicest guy ever. And it was like, so my intuition was saying, run, this is not good. It reminds me of all the pain from my childhood. And that's not accurate. I had to work through that. So a lot of people say, well, I just intuitively eat, or I just go with my gut. I think that's maybe that works if your gut is honed and if you've developed that skill over time. So for example, I intuitively eat now, but I don't really. I tracked macros and calories to the grain of rice for 3 years, and I have a mathematic modality of thinking. A banana has 120 calories, an apple has 90. Like, I'm not just winging it. Mm-hmm. And so you see people with results who say they're intuitively eating, and then you apply that and go, oh, well, if that person doesn't have to track, then I certainly don't. When in reality, that person probably tracked for 3 or 4 years and now can intuitively do it because their intuition is honed, because they've developed a sub-skill, a skill, and a meta skill. And I think that's one thing I'll make very clear too. There's a lot of wonderful people out there, but the success is a byproduct of skill development. It's not like I can't even tell you how many wonderful human beings I've met that are wildly unsuccessful, not just in fitness, but in life. And it hurts me. It hurts me. They could be so amazing, but they don't have the skills, sub skills, and meta skills necessary to actually win. And that's actually what my whole coaching practice is built around now is how do you give other people skills? You don't. Kevin is a great example. I've been coaching him for 8 years. That dude is a machine now. I mean, when I first met him, his intuition would have drove him off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And now he's a machine. It's unbelievable what people are capable of, but it takes constant deep practice and training and checking in and measuring and metrics and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, I think it's hard when I go on the internet and I hear like self-discipline doesn't work and you just go with the flow. That's no. Imagine if Apple was like, yeah, we don't really track anything. We just go with the flow. Michael Phelps' is coach. Yeah, just swim around,
So what's above meta? Uber?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Because what comes to mind here is we need almost talk about the Uber skill of developing meta skills as the principle of here rather than the specific skills. We'll get to that, but before
Philip, you would, man. Only engineers could complicate this.
Exactly. I think of two past guests that I've had recently. Well, one, he's been on 3 times, Dr. Eric Helms, nice. WNBF Pro. Love the guy. He and I actually just recorded an episode on epistemology, and I honestly felt, talk about humility. Like, I don't even know how it's going to come out, but I don't care because I learned a ton from him. But he, for I think his second appearance on my show, talked about how he's gone through how many preps, right? He's gone through dozens of preps in his career. And only now, and now as in like a year ago, when he's a pro, did he finally try not tracking? And he said, he said it only took years of doing it many different ways and honing the skill. It's exactly that. And then another guest I had on, Dr. Mickey Williden, she has the podcast Wikipedia. Love talking to her because her mindset is always about the skill and not about the thing or the result or like even what the skill is per se. And just the fact that you need to develop skills and get into that mindset.
Love it.
So having said all that, let's do that here from a fitness perspective. Not, hey, what program do you do for your training, but what are the meta skills and how do we develop those meta skills?
Challenge accepted.
Yes.
So not an easy feat too. And for anyone out there listening, just bear with us, take notes if you can, if you're not driving. One of the skills that needs to be honed is focus. And again, I've been coaching for 10 years. I have it tracked 11,478 hours of coaching, training, and podcasting. I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying that so I'm not some young kid just talking. I'm 36 years old. I look 12. I know. What I want you to know is this is all I do, right? Like helping people achieve their goals is all I do. And fitness coaching was the first 3 years of that. So focus. If I watch you for a day, if I could have a camera on you for a day, without it getting creepy, I could tell I could predict your success based on how well you control your focus. You want to talk about a meta skill and sub-skill, depending on how you look at it. Learning to control your focus is probably where I would start. If you can't stay focused, I have a hat on in the gym that's always black. I hate the ones with the underbrim that's not. I have a focus cap. Have you ever seen the focus caps that are like this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have one of those. I was wearing it earlier today. Yeah. Okay. I have AirPods that are noise canceling. I actually used to not wear contacts on purpose because I didn't want to see facial expressions in the gym. Now, I know I'm out of my mind with all this, but I'm telling you, when I'm in the gym, I go to war. I go to war with my lesser self. Do not talk to me. Do not look at me. Do not come near me. Emilia and I go to the gym every other day. We exercise together every day, but we gym every other day. We have sign language. People probably think we're deaf. We never talk. This means I need a spot. This means I hit a PR. But we have a bunch of others. And
Hold on, headphones or no? Music or no?
Music for sure.
So you do have music. Okay.
We do have music. Noise canceling AirPods.
But with music, not silence.
With music, not silence. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Specific playlists. Sometimes we jam together on Spotify. You can do a jam. Sometimes we don't. But specific playlists that for me, everything's fit for purpose. So, for example, after the gym, the song by Green Day, 21 Guns, came on. And she's like, hey, can we change this? This is too sad. I got to be on a call in 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, fair. So everything's fit for purpose for us. And so I always pick the workout. carb up in the morning, pre-workout, perfectly timed, boom, get into the gym, awesome, flow, hat down, no one talk to me, like, let's get in the zone. I also do the hoodie thing with the hoodie up to start, and then as you get warmer and warmer and warmer, you basically strip the whole time, because you're first it's a hoodie, then it's a shirt, then it's like a sacred practice. But focus, back to the skill, that's where I would start. If you can't stay focused, you can't build a great physique or a great company. You just can't.
Yeah. So it's great that you mentioned focus, because I feel like that ties back to the mindfulness and the flow that we were talking about earlier as well. And I know we don't have a lot of time left to get into what some of the other skills are, but I'm glad that you dropped, like, this is the thing to start from, because now I'm reflecting on my day. If you were creepily watching me with the camera, I do pride myself on being able to really focus, but at the same time, with social media, with the world today, with phones and notifications, and I'm often working from home with my family there, although they're super respectful and my kids are great. There's so many distractions and things like that. So I think that could be a whole other discussion about, okay, the listener takes this knowledge and says, what can I learn about being focused, knowing that meta skill can translate into all the other things I'm trying to do.
Yep.
With tracking my nutrition, with lifting weights, with having a plan, with sitting down and thinking about my future and all of those things. Where would they start?
So designing your environment for focus, and then also talking to your peers. So Emilia and I don't have kids yet. We have a dog and 2 cats. And I know that that's not the same, but that's not what I'm saying. Everyone has distractions. Also, my phone, and Philip, by the way, if you ever want to go deeper on this stuff, I'm happy to come back. This has been awesome. Okay. But for now, you can see there's no notifications on my phone. If you're on YouTube, you can see not a single badge notification, nothing. This phone will only ring for 2 humans. One is Kevin Palmieri, my business partner, who you know. The other one is Emilia Smith, my partner, intimate partner. I live with her. No one, right now there's 6 calls that I've gotten. Half of them are probably telemarketers or something crap. So when I said there's no notifications, there's a badge notification for calls down here. I just realized that now. But I'm going to block most of those people. And first I'm going to check my voicemail and see if any of those are legit. They're probably trying to lend me money because our company's doing very well, which I'm very grateful for. But my point is, and I know I got to go quick here, you need to design your digital and physical environments for flow. You have to design your digital and physical environments for focus. You'll notice I got calls. Watch this. I got 218, 213 yesterday. Apparently I got those calls yesterday. But I've had a call at 218. It's 2:58 now. I got 3 calls in the middle of this podcast and nothing rang. Now, there's something called emergency bypass on your iPhone. I don't have an Android, so you have to figure this out. If you have an Android, you can make it so certain people can get through and other people can't. There is nothing so urgent unless it's Kevin or Emilia, because if something's burning down in the business, I need to know. And if Emilia needs me, I need to know. But other than that, no one can get a hold of me. And now I know I'm extreme with that. I know a lot of people don't like that. Also, we have a closed door policy. So my office right now the door is closed. Stephen Kotler says, if you can't put a sign on your door that says F off, I'm flowing, then you have a problem. Emilia and I basically have house rules that say, if my door is closed, it means I'm flowing. Unless it's an absolute emergency, please do not disrupt me. And then when we have children, we're going to have a whole new set of house rules, which is a whole nother thing. But ultimately, if you design your phone and your physical environment for flow and for focus, you're going to be far better off. And also at your gym, and this is going to sound cruel, I know, but this is peak performance. Don't make friends at your gym. Don't make friends at your gym. I don't have any friends at my gym, and that's on purpose. It's by design, because I'm there to work out, and I make it very clear in my energy. I'm there to work out. I am not here to talk. I am not here to socialize. I don't have a lot of time. Time is my most valuable asset. I have 3 businesses I have to take care of. So at the end of the day, and by the way, when I have kids, it's going to be even worse. So at the end of the day, try your best to stay focused. There's only a few things in life that really, 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 really matter a lot. And most of the rest is just superfluous stuff. Fitness is one of the things that really matter. And if you don't focus and design your life for focus, you're in some trouble. And I say that hardcore because I care. Because you're not going to be in shape without that. You just need, you might not be in shape even with that. It's very challenging. Like I think it takes humility to say, I need to focus. I think it's arrogant to think you're going to wing it and be in great shape.
Sure. That's a great meta skill. And I think we're just scratching the surface on this. Honestly, I want people to reach out to you. We're going to share your contact info. And if you're listening to this, you're like, I've got to hear the rest of this potential conversation that we haven't yet agreed on having. And you want to hear the other meta skills that directly relate to fitness. And I know there's a list that we didn't even get to, Alan. I want you guys to reach out to Alan. If you're comfortable reaching out to me and just saying, bring Alan back on for that, do that as well. We want to test this out and talk about following up with the rest of these because it's an important conversation. And a lot of people think too much at a low level. And I think you've brought it up to that crucial level of the meta skills. So with that, Alan, where can folks reach out to you?
So we have a website called nextleveluniverse.com. We've got a book club. I do master classes every month for free. We got a group coaching program. We got all kinds of cool stuff. The podcast is Next Level University. It's 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. And that's Kevin and I just talking about success and personal development every single day, 2,200 episodes. And really what it is we're a coach in your pocket to keep you on point. Health, wealth, and love. And my Instagram is the best place to reach me. You and I have been talking on there. If you DM me on Instagram, that's going to be me, not an AI bot, not an EA, like actually me. And please reach out. I check it every single day. I do Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you DM me on any one of those, Instagram's best, Facebook's next, and LinkedIn is third. I will get back to you eventually. Just LinkedIn, expect a little delay.
We're going to keep it simple for folks. Keep the IG in there.
Yeah.
NLU podcast, nextleveluniverse.com. My brother, it's been a pleasure. Dear listener, reach out to Alan. He's a great guy. Check out their podcast. Tune in for the potential upcoming episode where we do another one of these. And have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.